Hey guys, the episode you're watching is actually a stock footage episode, therefore some of the shameless plugs aren't actually correct on it. Therefore, go to facebook.com/musicninjamat, that is our main hub for everything. Go over to Twitter and go to @musicninjamat, use the hashtag comic comments and ask us a question and we'll give you a shout out. And go into the description below. There are details of all our competitions there and the playlist for comic comments so you can see any episode that you like. Hey guys, you are now witnessing the great and mighty comic comments, the best show on all of YouTube. I mean, that's just my opinion, but you know. I've got another From the Vault for you, and this, it sits proudly on my shelf. This is probably like one of, if not my favourite comic book story. This is one of the ones that really stood out for me. I wasn't too into comics, and then my friend lent me like the whole of the New Avengers, and I read through that and I was like, this stuff's amazing. And obviously the standout story is Civil War. Finally picked up my own copy, reread it. I don't see the film being anything like this because of the characters they've got, because of the way that no one really has secret identities and stuff in the cinematic universe. It feels more like they've put the Civil War name on it to get people excited, but it'll only kind of be like this.
They've put Baron Zemo as the villain, but really there is no villain.
But we'll see how it turns out. I'm still excited for the film. I'd be more excited if there were more characters. Because some people will be like, why do you want... There's loads of characters in it. And I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't put a dent on how many characters are in this book. But yeah, I'm excited because this is like... This art is my favourite art of all time. I absolutely love the art in this. This is written by Mark Miller and the artist is Steve McNiven, and then a bunch of people worked on inks. We'll jump straight in with this. I think the reason I like this so much is because of how different it feels. I'll just get it out of the way now. I have one gripe with the entire book, which is just I don't like the way the Watcher looks, because it's an older look for the Watcher. I prefer like original Sin Watcher, but we'll get to that when he pops up. Because you know it's serious shit when the Watcher shows up. The basic premise for Civil War is it all starts with the New Warriors, who are a plucky band of superheroes who are filming a reality TV show. And it's such a ridiculous concept, but it's something that is believable. You have the New Warriors and you have Speedball, who's their leader. They're filming this reality TV show and they find a house where there's 4 supervillains hiding out. The New Warriors know they're out of their depth, but it's ratings. Like, imagine the ratings when we fight these guys. They charge in on the house. They manage to take out and deal with 3 of the supervillains. Fair play to them. But Nitro ends up getting away. And Nitro says, you know, you're playing with the big boys now, you guys have no idea. And Nitro is able to just create massive blasts, just huge explosions from his own body. And he blows up and he kills, there's like a school right nearby. So loads of children are dead. And that's how it kicks off. And then we get this lush, because it feels so cinematic. That's what I love about this, is that it's like we get that double page spread, so it's like watching the start of a movie and then that's where the credits come up. I just think it's really cool. As a side note, I suppose, after the events of that, even though Speedball, it wasn't really his fault because it's Namor's cousin who takes the fight to Nitro, but Speedball becomes a character called Penance, and Penance is like, he has like spikes on his costume that dig into him because he's got to pay for his sins, and he becomes this really dark character. He's not Penance anymore though, he's gone back to being Speedball because he was actually at the Avengers Academy training the heroes of tomorrow because everyone else is too busy actually being a superhero. But yeah, all these children have been killed, and everybody's kind of like, this is the straw that broke the camel's back, this will be it now, like serious shit is going to kick off. And we see there's a memorial service for all the children, which Tony Stark attends, and this woman spits on him and she's like, you're a piece of crap and my son's dead. And it's actually this woman, Miriam, and her and Stark are kind of like, things need to change, and she becomes like the big influence, and she wants to bring in a registration act where superheroes have to say their powers, their identity, and they'll get proper training. But everybody has to register, and that's just the way things work. So they can do like damage control and all this kind of stuff, and make people believe in heroes again.
Human Torch is just flying around and goes to this club, and all these humans start picking a fight with him, and then he actually gets bottled and knocked out and ends up in hospital because all these humans now hate superheroes.
Yeah, it becomes very generalized in that it's kind of like they're calling him a baby killer and stuff, and he's like, but I'm not even on the New Warriors.
Yeah, so now people just hate anybody who has powers.
And obviously all the heroes meet. Some people are like, well, of course we have to register, it's the best way to go, and then other people are like, are you crazy? And it's interesting because this is where we start to see who's going to be on each side of things. Like, Thing gives a really backhanded comment to Wolverine by saying like, yeah, it's animals like you roaming around that give us a bad name. And the Watcher ends up showing up, and they're like, that's not good. That's like, the fact that he's actually shown up, that's never good for anybody. We see a meeting between Captain America and Maria Hill, and like, Maria Hill in the comics, she hates superpowered people, and her and Cap have never seen eye to eye. And this is where Cap basically says like, screw you, screw registering, not gonna happen. And she's like, well, Cap, we're gonna have to take you in. And it's very Captain America, the Winter Soldier film like, where Cap just fights his way out of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's really cool, because this is one of those stories where like, this isn't the plucky, happy, like, God bless America Cap. This is like straight up badass Cap. But he's also kind of like I hate grumpy Cap, like,
yeah,
old man grumpy Cap in Time Runs Out.
Oh yeah, don't like
Yeah,
that.
there's at some points he kind of feels that way.
But sometimes he's just badass. Like, he uses one of the people shooting him as a human shield for the rest of the people that are shooting him, and then he just busts out a window with his shield.
He jumps on a jet and he's like, you better keep driving, son. And the jet, we find out that the jet actually landed on a baseball field, and Cap bought him a meal, the driver a meal, before he went on his way. I think it's just a funny way of saying like, that's Captain America all over. It's like, he does something really badass, but actually he's like,
he's still a nice person.
They do the whole idea of whose side are you on, but you need a villain, which is why I feel like Cap's written more to be like, you want to cheer him on, and Tony's written more as a, you're a dick. Because obviously it gets to a point, you know, where it's been established that Tony's very on board with registering, Cap not at all. And it's kind of like, we see Vulture and other villains are mentioned that have been taken out because Captain America's gone underground, but Maria Hill's like, he can't have done this on his own, which means more people have joined Cap's cause. So that's it now, like, we have Cap on one side, Tony on the other. They do a lot of these newspaper articles, which I think are quite cool. It's like I said, this book just feels really cinematic. The Registration Act is passed, so it's now law, and they're like, everyone's happier now because, yay, superheroes are being controlled. I also made a note of She-Hulk's butt. I feel like this has happened in other stories. Any story She-Hulk's in.
You just really like She-Hulk.
I do. Hulk's my favourite character. Like, my favourite superhero. And so she's like a Hulk, but she's like a sexy Hulk. It's like the dream come true. Like, if you want to paint yourself green and just turn up in my bedroom, you know, welcome any day.
You're going to regret saying that on the internet.
What are we talking about? We find out that Reed Richards, Hank Pym, and Tony Stark are working on Project 42. And Project 42 is a prison in the negative zone. There's a reason it's called 42. It's not just a random number, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, it's prison in the negative zone. And we see like Sue Richards more and more throughout the story is more like, I don't like what's going on here at all. We see that Cap's team is being hunted. Like we see Patriot being chased through the streets. But it's so cool because Cap and Falcon go undercover. So they're actually the ones to pick up all the captives. And then they get Cloak to just teleport this truck full of everybody back to their base. Yeah, Nick Fury has, it's like 20 something safe houses, and this is one of them, and Nick Fury's like, yeah, Cap can just use it whenever. This to me is like the big moment that everyone remembers, is that Spider-Man unmasks, because he's on Tony's side, and he's like, yeah, I've been Spider-Man since I was 15, and it's a big, everyone's like, this is a big stunt by Tony, basically, because if Spider-Man's willing to unmask, then, you know. And what's brilliant is Jonah Jameson is sat and he's watching and he's like, everybody shut up, I've been waiting for this for so long. And then we just see where he was sat, he's just fallen off his chair when he sees it's Peter Parker. But it's kind of, you know, the idea that even Peter says earlier on, like, I don't want to come home one day and find Mary Jane impaled on an octopus arm. And that's why so many people are like, you reveal your identity and you put everyone in danger, sort of thing. It's just kind of a reminder of why they have secret, because like the Fantastic Four are public, and people are like, well, why isn't everyone just public then? What's the point? But it goes back to like,
it's because all the Fantastic Four, they're
a family.
That's their family,
yeah.
So they've all got powers to protect themselves.
We see then that a couple of people, like Doctor Strange, has just decided to disappear, and he's going to fast for 40 days as kind of like a protest to hope that everyone can sort stuff out.
Because he doesn't want to pick a side.
Yeah, but
he knows he could stop it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, but he has said no to Tony. We then see Tony chatting to Emma Frost, and Emma's kind of like, this whole situation just feels like the X-Men to me, like people being prosecuted for being different. So she says no. She was like, we won't run off with Cap either, but we're not getting involved in this war. Everyone has new identities, like new secret identities, so they can still go around and be in public when they're not out saving the world. But they're called into action, our Cap's team, and then they see that where they've been called to is a division of Stark Industries. And the whole thing was a trap set up by Tony, because he was like, well, now we have all of you in one place. Cap's like, okay, Tony, I'll give you 5 minutes, and he shakes Tony's hand, and then Tony looks, and there's an electronic device which basically shorts him out, and it's just one of the best, because as I was rereading it, I could barely remember this. It was years ago I read this. And I saw the handshake and I was like, oh, I don't remember this bit. And then as soon as I saw the device, I was like, oh yeah. And like a huge fight then breaks out between the two sides. This is probably a more iconic image as well, because Cap gets the crap beaten out of him by Tony during this fight. Spider-Man also has his Iron Spider suit with the mechanical arms.
I really like that suit. I wish it kept
cool
it.
It's just, yeah.
Like, if it didn't happen in this story and didn't have connotations of him working for Tony Stark, then if he kept the suit, it would have been awesome.
And then Thor shows up, and everyone's like, we thought Thor was dead, so what's going on? But it turns out that Tony Stark had kept a strand of Thor's hair from their very first meeting, from like way back when the Avengers started. And they're able to make this Thor robotic clone, but they haven't really thought through of how to control it. And so this Thor clone actually ends up just fucking blasting a hole through Goliath and killing Goliath. And this is one of the bigger moments in the book where there are people on Tony's side who are like, wow, Tony, like, because of you, somebody's just died. But then there are people on Cap's side who are terrified because they're like, look, we don't want to be chased after anymore. So there's side switching happens.
But at the point that Goliath gets the hole blown in him, he's huge. So when they have to bury the body, they have to have like 40 funeral plots just to bury him, which Tony Stark pays for.
But then this is the point where Sue Storm puts a bubble around all of Cap's team, and she's like, right, get out of here. She protects them and allows them to escape. Yeah, because Spider-Man says, I thought you said you knew what you were doing, Tony. I thought we were doing this so no one else got hurt. And see, this is what I mean by the Watcher, like, the way that he's drawn.
I quite like that image though, like, even he's sad.
Yeah, but it's just I'm used to the more like giant baby looking Watcher,
I know,
rather than elderly man looking Watcher.
He's still got a big head and he's still bald though.
So yeah, Peter Parker's just worried, and Hank Pym just has a complete breakdown, and he's on antidepressants, and because he's Yellow Jacket at this point, because Hank Pym's just nuts, and yeah, Cap's in pretty bad shape at this point, and people have decided to leave his team. And Sue Storm ends up leaving. She leaves Reed, but she basically says, like, just please sort this all out. She's like, I'm ashamed of what we've done. We've lost one of our friends. And Johnny goes with her.
I really like the way they've both made umbrellas as well.
Oh,
Sue
yeah.
has, like, an invisible force field above her head to stop the rain. And then Johnny's got, like, fire above his head to evaporate it before it hits him.
But this is where, as well, it's another bold move, I'd say, by Tony, where they want to increase their numbers, so they call upon the Thunderbolts, so people like Bullseye and Taskmaster. It's another thing that just makes people more uncomfortable. It's now, Thunderbolts are basically Marvel's Suicide Squad.
Yeah, basically.
Like, let's reform supervillains, but we'll keep an eye on them, like, they'll have chips in them and all this kind of stuff. This is probably like the most badass I've ever seen Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Is in this part where he's saying like, Tony, I'm leaving. I don't want to do this anymore. And Tony's trying to talk him down and stop him, and he just says, get out of my way, and just blasts Tony. And Spider-Man escapes, and then he goes on the run straight away. They call in these new Thunderbolts, and they call in Jack-o'-lantern and the Jester. And they are literally just beating the shit out of Spider-Man.
And then the Punisher shows up and just shoots them in the head.
S.H.I.E.L.D. are saying to them, like, no, you don't get to run amok, you don't just get to go and beat these guys up, like, there should be limits. But yeah, we see Punisher carrying, like, Spider-Man's, like, broken body. We see Daredevil. I love Daredevil getting taken in. We see, like, their new jail and everything, this Prison 42. And he's like, come on, Daredevil, we can talk. And they're like, actually, he hasn't said anything. And then underneath his tongue, Daredevil has a silver dollar. And Tony's like, I don't understand. And he says, guess that's 31 pieces of silver you've got now, huh? Sleep well, Judas. And it's like, oh, it's so cool. Everyone is so badass in this book, and that's why I love it. They want to start this 50 states initiative where every state will have their own small superhero team, and that's another one of the ideas that's part of this Registration Act. Which, like, to be fair, that's probably one of the cooler ideas that they have.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good idea.
Yeah. I think a lot of the stuff they want to do is good ideas. It's just Tony Stark is so unlikable in this.
I think it's just the way they go about doing it. They're like forcing people to do what they want rather than asking them.
Yeah. Punisher's able to break into the Baxter building to get the plans for this new prison. And we see Sue Storm goes to Atlantis to ask Namor for help. And they have a weird moment where he's like, I can feel your heartbeat through the water and I know how you feel about me. He's such a...
He's an asshole.
He refuses to help, basically. But we see some supervillains turn up at Cap's base, and they're like, well, Tony's got supervillains, so maybe you should have some. And they're like, what Tony's doing is affecting us as well. And Punisher just shoots them both, because he's Punisher, and if he sees anybody that's, you know, remotely bad, he's got to kill them. and Cap beats the shit out of him, and Cap's like, I never should have trusted you, just get out.
But while Cap's beating the shit out of Punisher, Punisher is not fighting back at all because he respects Captain America.
Cap's probably the reason he went to Vietnam, same guy, different war, is what Spider-Man says. Yeah, they turn up at this prison 42, do Cap and his team, and Tony turns up as well with his full forces. And Tony's like, we've had a spy, like, Tigra was a spy the whole time. And Cap's like, oh, we already knew about that. And then he's like, we had somebody on your side. And it turns, Hank Pym steps forward, and Tony's like, what? And he's like, well, I'm not Hank Pym, I'm actually Hulkling. And
I love Hulkling.
Yeah, it's so cool. And then they're like, well, hang on, as Hank Pym, he could have done anything. And they're like, the cells. And they've released everyone that had been arrested, like Daredevil, have all been released again, and then it's going to turn into full frontal war, and it's awesome. Yeah, because I believe at this point we have a Lady Hawkeye, because Hawkeye's running around as Ronin.
Was that Kate Bishop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the new Avengers storyline's great. Just overall a great series, because Hawkeye's brought back to life at the end of House of M. But he doesn't want to be Hawkeye anymore, so Kate Bishop becomes Hawkeye, and Hawkeye actually becomes Ronin. Ronin was created because Daredevil gets approached, and they're like, be on the new Avengers, and he's like, I can't, everyone knows that I'm Matt Murdock. Mm. And so Ronin was a character that they wrote so that it was like, he can still be on the team. But everyone was like, oh, Daredevil's on the team. And then the writers were like, it's not Daredevil, and then they were like, it's Echo, and Echo's a character, I think she's deaf, and she was Ronin for a bit, she hangs up Ronin, the attire, and then Hawkeye's like, cool, I won't be Hawkeye, but I'll be Ronin.
I also really like that when Kate Bishop becomes Hawkeye, she doesn't become like She-Hawkeye or Lady Hawkeye, she's just Hawkeye.
Yeah, because I swear she's like, only the other Hawkeye can call me something different. If he wants to call me Lady Hawkeye or Hawkette or something like that, he can do. And then he's just like, come on, Hawkeye. And they're fighting, and Cloak takes them back to the Baxter building.
It's like the biggest teleport that Cloak has ever done.
Yeah, it's crazy. Cloak and Dagger are cool characters.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this bit as well. Spider-Man's fighting through people, and Reed just looks up and he's like, amazing. And then Spider-Man just goes, spectacular. I thought it was funny.
It was good.
They've rebuilt Thor, and so Thor turns up, but there's a point where Captain America's getting the shit kicked out of him by all these villains, and he looks up and they're like, what's so funny, Cap? And then he's just like, well, you're about to get your asses kicked, and Namor and his whole force shows up. Vision manages to break Iron Man's armour, so Iron Man goes down, and Cap's just beating the crap into him, but he's literally just like a mess on the floor.
Hercules was friends with Thor, and then him and this new Thor are fighting, and he just smashes him with his hammer. So his face breaks, and it's awesome, and it's just, thou art no Thor.
Yeah, Ragnarok is the clone Thor.
That's the one.
But yeah, Iron Man's face is just getting smashed in, and he's just a mess. And all these people are grabbing Cap, and they're like, you need to stop. And then Cap just drops his shield, and he's like, we're just fighting. He's like, we're not fighting for anything, we're not protecting anyone. The city's destroyed, and he's like, so he just surrenders. And there's just a nice moment where Punisher picks up Cap's mask, and Cap's like, it's not Captain America they're arresting, it's Steve Rogers, and he's taking his mask off. The 50 state initiative that gets up and running, and throughout these ending parts we see that Reed has been writing a letter to Sue, just asking her really to come home, and it's a narration of everything that's happening. So Tony Stark becomes the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well, but Sue ends up coming back home, and Tony Stark basically explains that the moment those children were killed, him, Reed Richards, and Hank Pym wrote a list of 100 ideas that they were going to change the world with, and the prison was number 42. And he says number 43 is cleaning up S.H.I.E.L.D, which he plans to do. And that's where Civil War ends, but obviously, like, with so much happens in the New Avengers, we'll probably do Secret Invasion at some point. Because, like, Luke Cage and Spider-Man, like, there is still this underground resistance. Because we have the New Avengers and then Tony Stark's Mighty Avengers. And they're always sort of clashing together. Like, eventually Doctor Strange ends up joining with the New Avengers, and he's able to, like, mask them of where they are. So he makes this building look like a rundown building that's being renovated, and Tony Stark's like, I know you're in there, and he's like, just come out. And Tony Stark just becomes more and more frustrated throughout the series. But Civil War, I would recommend 110%. I absolutely love it, and the art is great. This has been, people in the industry and fans alike have said, this is the story that got people into comic books. People who had never read a comic before would pick this up and read it and just be like, this is cool, I like comic books. What are your final thoughts on?
I really liked it as well. I'd definitely recommend it.
Would it, like, yeah, I suppose, does this make you want to, like, read the New Avengers?
Yeah, it really does.
Because the New Avengers storyline, what's amazing about the New Avengers storyline is it starts out with a story called Breakout, where there's just a mass breakout at the raft. Electro just breaks everybody out, and it's like a shady figure who gets Electro to break everybody out, and there's just all these little events. Like, I believe Volume 2 is the Sentry, and you meet the Sentry, and there's his backstory. And, like, Civil War is one, and Secret Invasion is a volume. But everything that happens in the New Avengers comes down to Secret Invasion, basically. It's amazing how everything ties in together. Like, it was a Skrull that organised the breakout. Like the prison breakout and all this kind of stuff. It's so good, and yeah, Secret Invasion is awesome. I read it ages ago when I read this, so I'm going to reread it. You're going to read it, and we'll definitely do an episode on that too. So yeah, that's Civil War. I'm still excited for the film, even though there will be an event that will cause there to be some kind of registration act, and Cap and Tony will splinter off. We've already seen hints of that in the movies. A lot of people, like, Crossbones is going to be in it, so a lot of people have been saying it'll either be, there might be a fight between, like, Winter Soldier and Crossbones that blows up shit and kills a load of innocent people, and that's what causes it. Like, they could...
That seems most likely.
Yeah, Winter Soldier will just be like the new Warriors, basically. They've taken the general idea from Civil War, not necessarily the events, but the general idea, but they've wanted to apply it to the same formula they always use. Because to them it's like, no, we need a villain, we need heroes and villains, but it sounds more like they're trying to deal with Baron Zemo, who's our big villain, while fighting amongst themselves.
Which is basically the other two Avengers movies.
Yeah. Like this, I said to you, it racked my brain, like, it's Captain America Civil War. This is just an Avengers film without them calling it an event. The amount of people there are more people in Civil War than there are in the Avengers films.
Yeah. But maybe they just didn't want to make a Captain America 3.
Yeah, but by the looks of it, there's, like, I don't think Thor's going to be in Civil War.
Because he'll probably be dead or something.
Thunderbolt Ross is turning up for Civil War. Hulk's still a maybe, but I hope he doesn't turn up in Civil War.
Yeah, I hope Planet Hulk happens.
I'd love to see Red Hulk, which would be cool. It's important to remember that you should give this video a like, because it's Civil War, so you have to give it a like. And then because it's also Civil War and it's great, you should also subscribe, because you're feeling it. You're bursting off the energy from Civil War. And then leave a comment so you can tell us how awesome it is. Or tell us if you didn't like it, because I've yet to meet somebody who's been like, oh, Civil War, but people like that must exist out there. So leave a comment. So we will see you guys in the next one. I've been Matt.
I've been Pete. Wait.
No, you have.
You said I've been Matt and I've been Pete.
Yeah, I have been.
No, and then I said I've been Pete.
Yeah.
And then you said no.
I didn't say no.
You did say no.
You are Pete.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make you doubt your own identity.
I'm not that. Fucking hell.
Please have a mental breakdown.
So confused. Just.
Rubbish. Bye.
Bye.